Hey, we're live, pal. Sorry to miss you last week. My co-host, Andrew Zarian, you feeling a little bit better?
Oh, so much better, dude. I was having, I thought I had food poisoning and it was a stomach bug, and I just felt like crap for days. So Sunday, I couldn't do WOL. I couldn't do the show with you on Tuesday. And then by Thursday, I was fine, obviously. But I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, no, sometimes when you do a show, miss a week, you miss doing it with your friend and makes you more excited for the following week. So I'm
I
pretty excited
know, I
tonight.
know.
All right,
I
so
know. You
lots
know,
of...
I regret missing because it was a big week. And I felt like I was like, hey, Garrett, I can't do it. I'm sick. See you later. you know?
Look, we do so much content that sometimes it is okay to take a break, right? Like there's so many things going on. Okay, so I guess where should we start? There's so many things to talk about today. We will get to Revolution. I know it's a few days later at this point, but I think people are 2 days later. I think people are still interested in talking about Revolution. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about it. But I guess let's start here with Kevin Owens on Monday Night Raw throwing out the KO show invite to Stone Cold Steve Austin for Dallas. And I was still maybe in the back, like just thought, there's just a small chance that maybe they'll still set up a match. But this looks like it's completely 100% just a segment for WrestleMania at this point, right?
Well, did you see the Austin video at noon?
I did see the Austin video.
I mean, I took that as they're going to, I watched that whole video. By the way, great job with that video, huh? They did it fantastically done.
He's great.
And he's excellent. He looks great. The whole video thing was cool. This is where WWE shines, really, when they put these packages together.
Except why was it on Twitter?
Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, Twitter and Instagram.
We put it on TV, maybe? I don't know. We have all these television shows and so many hours during the week. Could have been like 800 should have been on NXT tonight, right? Like we get a little bump for NXT.
Yeah, might as well send a couple people there. Listening to him talk, I took it as they're setting it up for, that segment, but I see that becoming into Austin saying like, hey, you're running your mouth too much. Why don't you, whatever, let's make this into a match. I haven't kicked someone's ass in 17 years or 19 years, whatever it is. And then the ring bell, the bell rings and they go right into like a 5-minute match. That's how I see it playing out.
Okay, you know what? The only problem I had...
My thoughts.
The only problem I had with Austin's promo, WrestleMania 20, the year after he retired, he stunned both Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, right? Like he was the referee in that match. And then the very next year was LA. And didn't he like do a segment with Roddy Piper and Carlito and end up stunning people? Like this is a common theme to him since he retired, right? So that was part of the problem that I had with his promo. And this seems, and then the Donald Trump thing a few years after that as well. I was at Dallas for 32, and him and Mick Foley and Shawn Michaels did a thing with Big E and Xavier and Kofi. So this is like not special, and they're trying to make it special. So the one way they could make it a little bit more special is, like you said, if it turns into a match, very similar to The Rock at WrestleMania 32 with Eric Redbeard. You remember that? It was like a 30-second match. So
what did he do? He threw him off the ropes and rock bottomed him, and that
just
was
like
it?
No, I think they were just in each other's face and they were talking trash, and then Rock just put him in the rock bottom and won the match. So I guess my point is any Austin is a positive to me, right? Austin is great. You mentioned the promo. He's all of a sudden the best promo in WWE right now, just based off of that promo. So what does it mean to the audience, the ticket buying audience? Do people now go, oh, instead of being the host, Austin's going to be in a KO show segment. I wasn't going to WrestleMania before, but now I'm going. Because that's the whole reason, right? You want to set this thing up so that more people feel that this event is special, and you're trying to sell out, 80,000 tickets both nights. Doing Austin in the KO show segment, I'm not sure how much that ticks up the tickets. And if you're Austin, I wonder, because Austin's a businessman. I wonder if Austin's like, dude, I know all the money you guys are making. You want me to actually get in the ring? There's a little bit more cash that is necessary for that to happen. So I don't know. I mean, do you think that this is going to be a big enough deal for them to be able to sell more tickets?
I think the rumor alone helped them sell a ton of tickets for sure. Does it get them closer to 70,000 a night? Yeah, maybe a little bit, and it also depends what they do next week, because I believe next week they're doing a 316 week, right? Isn't that what they do?
Is that what it is?
That's what they did a couple years ago, and last year I think they did the 316 week. So
yeah,
I would maybe imagine they do something again. But you have a couple weeks to maybe turn this around. Maybe Austin says, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to do this stupid show. I'm going to fight you." I think they're going to turn this into a match. I can't see. I really can't see them putting so much pressure on this and eyeballs on this, and Austin just comes out and does something and just stuns him and leaves. I really hope that's not it. I think sometimes we don't give them enough credit to realize when the writing is on the wall for like something they're doing. I think this is one of those things where you don't want to leave people super disappointed, but maybe they just have the attitude of, listen, they're getting Austin. What difference does it make? They're going to be happy anyway.
Right. Now, okay, so you just said that, which leads me into this discussion. Did you go to the Madison Square Garden show this weekend?
Haha. So, I'll tell you, there were a lot of people that wanted me to go, and they were dangling this carrot in front of me for days saying, "Hey, listen, it's going to be a really big show." That's me dangling a carrot. I don't know. Is that I mean, it doesn't look like a carrot.
No, it doesn't.
I was literally going, and I had the tickets, and my day got really busy. I got really tired, and then I saw what's on the script for the show, and I was like, yeah, I could kind of pass on this.
Because what you just said is we should give them credit for, let's do this Austin thing right. But then they just did the main event at Madison Square Garden with Austin Theory, which I was trying to think about what would they built it up so big. What could they actually have presented that would have been a fulfilling thing? If it's not Cody
That was
Rhodes,
always the main event, though. That was always the main event.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. Like, it was always going to be the main event. It was always going to be a quick squash. And I believe, and I think Dave said this also, they changed plans and they were going to do something different, then like immediately went back into the old plan.
You know what I would have done? And I actually thought about this when we were trying to figure out what the plan was. I would have just done Roman. I would have just had Roman come out and be like, "I'm the dude." And then, they do some like double disqualification thing with the Usos, kind of like what actually played out. I thought that would have been way better. But yeah, they did what they
booked
did.
themselves into a box there. They sold a whole bunch of tickets on speculation. I'll tell you that.
But that's what I mean is I wonder if that's going to be the Austin thing too. It's like, let's be a little vague about what Austin is actually going to do in this segment. The hope for the fan base would be we get to see Austin have one last match. And then, whether it's a 5-minute match, like you said, where he takes one bump, to his ass and whatever. But I worry a little bit about that, about, them possibly being vague and then not delivering, because that's frustrating if you're a fan and you buy tickets to see Austin.
Absolutely. And some of this is a lot. I would say historically for wrestling, the fans make things, especially Twitter and social media, we will ruin stuff. I'm saying we as a community, not you or myself or anybody watching, but
yes,
the speculation.
Just blame who you want to blame.
I'm going to
blame Dave. See, he's the one who told us.
I'm blaming Dave. I'll never blame Dave. You've seen his arms?
Yeah.
Listen, I got a little macaroni. I got little noodles here compared to Big Dave, Big Papa Pump Dave.
I just saw him on Sunday. We're trying to get his Twitter verified.
I know. Listen, I'm involved in this whole thing too, right?
Yeah.
You've heard
I'm glad
about
you're
this.
involved.
I'm calling Tony, little breaking the fourth wall. I'm calling Tony daily. and I'm like demanding that all the F4W stuff get verified. I'm doing my media stuff that I normally do with my other companies into this now.
Okay, I mean, we've steered away from the topic, but do you want to know why the Twitter's not verified yet?
I know who, Dave's or
Dave's, yeah.
F4W.
No, Dave's.
No, why?
I don't think Dave set the account up for himself. I think it was set up for him, and so now we got to figure out passwords and email addresses and all that stuff. So I think we're pretty close though. The next time I see him, I should be able to figure it out. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's got the Wikipedia page. Like, you know, people have who his wife is incorrectly on the internet, all that stuff. All right, sorry, I kind of veered us in the wrong direction.
He's not the motivational speaker, Dave Meltzer, or the accountant that lives down the block from me, Dave Meltzer. There's a guy. There's a Dave Meltzer.
There's an accountant.
There's an accountant named Dave Meltzer around the corner from me, and I take a photo of the sign that says Dave Meltzer, certified accountant, and I constantly tweet it out. I do this like twice a year at least, and I write, "I'm giving him 5 stars."
What's his Yelp look like?
I don't know. That's a good question. We should find out. So, I forgot what your question was. Jeez.
We were talking about the MSG thing. You didn't go. You sort of knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, so we will speculate and make it, get it in our heads that certain things happen. But, this time around, it's not the fans that are speculating and making it worse. It's WWE kind of being very vague, and I'm not going to say their PR department is kind of doing this, but they're a little bit like, well, anything could happen, wink and a nod. I would say you get to do this only a handful of times, because eventually people are going to really feel burned, especially when you're in a market that's overly saturated like New York. That was a rough 8,700 seats to fill. That was not easy for them. And I can't, whenever they come next, which I don't think they're going to be here for a while, maybe till probably September, they'll do the MSG show like they do the first week in the first 2 weeks of September. I can't see them doing this again and burning that building.
Yeah.
December, that was a rough house in December for them. This was a rough house. The TV was a rough. They're having, there are some struggles here in this market. And you really can't, not false advertise, but kind of be like, well, so-and-so could show up, maybe, and then they don't. And I think for WrestleMania is a big enough show. I think Austin being there is going to satisfy people in that building. I don't think people going there are going to be, if you get a 5-minute match with Austin, that's official, or a 6-minute unofficial segment where he's beating the crap out of Kevin Owens. I think you kind of get, that final moment with him in the ring doing something like that. But maybe he wants closure too, man. Maybe that's part of it too. He's heard for the last 20 years, why aren't you having another match? Career was ended early. Might as well, the battle at the Stunners or something.
Man, think of all the matches that he could have had with people going, let's go back to 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Punk thing was there. There's Lesnar stuff that was out there. And very interesting that this is the time, but maybe the money is finally right for him to think about it, which it should be, because they're the richest that they've ever been. You had some news today on Twitter.
I did.
Did you want to, if the people did not see your Twitter post, what is that news?
So it looks like I'm being told that Sid is going in the Hall of Fame. Psycho Sid, not Sid Vicious. Maybe Sid Vicious, maybe Psycho Sid, depending. Sid Justice,
There we go. That's my favorite one, Sid Justice.
One of them. Which one was your favorite version? Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, or Psycho Sid?
Okay, so I have this theory,
or just Sid.
So we're gonna go back to 1992, but so you were a youngster back then. So Hogan is on his way out. He's got all the steroid stuff, so they're kind of they're phasing him out, and they just want him to go away for a little while. In that Royal Rumble that Ric Flair wins, Sid Justice is so over, like a maniac with that crowd.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And if they wanted to kind of they maybe they do this now because they're more reactive to stuff and less planning. But there is a scenario, I think there's an alternate universe that Ric Flair wins that title at Royal Rumble, and babyface version of Sid Vicious is Sid Justice is the person who beats Rick, because the fans saw him as like a guy in that moment. Now Sid is going to screw it up eventually, and he did, because he failed the steroid test like before the Hogan match.
Yeah.
But there's this little thing in me that goes, they could have taken advantage of it if Hogan's leaving anyways. But
I'll
Sid
go back
Justice,
even
Sid Justice
further
is my
back.
favorite.
That SummerSlam where he was a special guest ref.
Yeah,
I was in that building. People
wow.
were really into Sid.
Yeah.
They were super into Sid. And I remember that was, like those early memories of being at wrestling events with my family, those are like engraved in my brain. I could tell you every reaction that Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect match got. Everything, all the sequences, it's like engraved in me. Sid got a huge reaction. The kids especially, were really into this jacked up, curly-haired blonde dude.
I mean, he looked like a younger version of Hogan, right? Like, that's what he looked like standing next to Hogan. You're like, oh, a younger, bigger version of Hogan.
Yeah, he was very impressive until, you kind of saw what he was doing, and then you were less impressed. But, it's WWF at the time. He would have been a mega star if things worked out well. Yeah, I mean he was a mega star. Let's not take it away. But
even in '97, he still had that presence in '97. They would phase him out very quickly, though. One of the few guys to miss out on the Attitude Era and the WCW and WWE war there. He missed the whole thing pretty much. He came back to WCW and they got hurt.
Did he was it a fight?
I think he just burned bridges. Like he left WCW to come back to WWF, and then he did not like how he was booked. He didn't want to lose to all the guys that they're having him lose to. So I think he's just hard to work with,
Fascinating guy.
Okay, so
fascinating guy.
So we got the Vader announcement, we got the Sid Vicious announcement, or the Psycho Sid, or the Sid Justice,
and there's two more.
Okay, so do you have any insight on them? Are they going to be guys that we feel really good about going in?
So I'm not, we're talking now, we're doing a show, so I'm not posting officially on Twitter, right? Like, this isn't my official Andrews Arians confirming, but I mean, I think I heard the Steiners. That was one. I heard Sharmell. I have way less verification on Sharmell than I do on the Steiners. I was told the Steiners go in, and then I was told Rick, and then I was told no, the Steiners. So apparently something with the Steiners, which well-deserved. It looks like the whole class is that early 90s era, right? It looks like, Vader, Sid, Taker.
You know what's interesting about that list that is heavy WCW guys, right? Because like if you think of, so even the Undertaker's a WWE, WWF guy for life, but he comes from that same time frame as all those guys came from. Steiner Brothers in late 80s, Mean Mark Callis in the early 90s, Sid Vicious in the early 90s. They were all from that era. Big Van Vader, obviously WCW legend, maybe not Sharmell, but I think it's interesting that it's a heavy like early 90s, late 80s WCW flavor to that Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and which makes me interested, like very interested. And I'm off the Hall of Fame. Like I used to love going to the Hall of Fame, and now I would never go again. But
why is that?
So I think it's too long. I think it's too much back padding. It's not special anymore when certain folks are going in just because they have to fill names. But like if you go back, I remember, we'll go back to WrestleMania 25 when Austin gets in. I was so fired up to go to that. I was like, can't wait to hear this speech. And then they put the clock on the guy in like 10 minutes. I was like, why did I even go to this? But so here's my question, which is, now I don't know if you heard Wrestling Observer Radio from last night, early this morning, But Meltzer's saying that they only have that 90-minute window, and that some of the people may get what he called digital inductions, like maybe not even physically there because of time constraint. Maybe it's just about the Undertaker. Have you heard anything about that?
That's interesting. I haven't. I missed Dave saying that also. I listened to the show, but I guess I wasn't listening carefully. But
he also said that they were talking about putting it in a stadium or something because the original building was supposed to be a game scheduled that I guess got changed or something.
What are they gonna do? They're gonna have these guys use a Zoom call, from their living rooms. They don't have time. I mean,
let's get producer John on it. He could produce the whole thing.
Yeah, John could probably do. John, our producer, could do a better job than what they're doing. No, listen, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. By the way, the Hall of Fame stuff, just like somebody mentioned it to me, thinking I knew what was happening with the Hall of Fame. And I was like, I'm so disconnected from it. Like, I don't actively try to seek it. I think whoever goes in, it's great. It's for them. I find that interesting. So why would you, and how do you determine, like, hey, you're going into Hall of Fame, but you're in the B side of this.
Right. Right. You're so much in the B side. You're so much in the B side that we're not inviting you, and you are going to say hello maybe on Zoom, and that's I don't know. I mean maybe I misinterpreted what the idea was that Dave was saying, but
you know what else though? They did that legacy wing, remember that? And some of the people that went in that legacy wing, I think they deserve to be up and have like a Hall of Fame moment, not just be like, hey, we're also inducting so and so.
Right.
So maybe some I don't know.
Did you see any of Raw, by the way?
I saw bits and pieces.
Okay, so my 90-minute version that I love watching, the Hulu version.
Is it down at 30?
No. It was 90, but you know what they didn't show? So this is why I wanted to ask you if you saw any of the Bron Breakker stuff on Raw.
Yeah, I did. That I saw.
I thought it was kind of cool that he's on that show, and they won the match, and hoping what I hope is that they get a little bump for NXT tonight based on them being on Raw.
I hope so, because he's very impressive, man. And you could see everybody realizes how good he is.
Yeah.
And somebody said this to me that's an active wrestler. He said, I don't think he gets as much praise from the fans because of the change of NXT than he would have if, like, the Triple H era was still happening. This guy would be getting tremendous amount more praise as far as how good he is. And these guys see stuff that we don't. Obviously, we're not in the ring, but everybody that works with him says he is fantastic in the ring. I mean, we could see some of it, but there's something that these veterans are looking at and saying, man, this kid is the future. Maybe a little bit too much of that John Cena pressure on him right now, but I thought he looked great on Raw. I thought he fits in perfectly.
He looks like he should be on that show, right? Like, again, I didn't get to see the whole thing, but when I did see, some of the social media stuff, it's like he looks like he's already outgrown NXT in a way, and that he should be featured on Raw every week.
I think so.
All right, let's talk a little bit about AEW Revolution. You did the live stream, the watch along with was it you and Rich?
So Rich came in at like 9:30. He had a gig in the city. I had my buddy Kyle. He's a local indie wrestler here. He hung out for a little bit. I think that was the last watch along I'm going to be doing.
It's a hard gig, man, especially on those 5-hour pay-per-views.
The 5-hour pay-per-views are hard, and from when we started doing the watch alongs, we were just lunatics. All right, we would lose our minds. We were drinking the whole time. And then, like, I would have time because, the pandemic was happening. I could watch it again tomorrow. Didn't matter. And now I'm like, oh, crap, I got to watch it again the next day because I actually have to talk about the things, because there's a lot more eyeballs on my coverage with this stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that may be one of the last ones that I'm doing. Maybe I'll do Mania. Maybe, I don't know, but it's not
2
as much
days
fun
though.
as it used to be. I know,
Yeah.
that's the hardest part. It's just not as fun. It's really not as much fun as it used to be. Super long pay-per-views. We'll see, but I think I'm calling it quits for the time being. But man, I did love the pay-per-view. Great pay-per-view.
I actually like this pay-per-view more than the last one, which I know a lot of people thought In Ring that was one of the best pay-per-views of all time. I like this show. Maybe my second favorite AEW show. The one that we went to live in Chicago is my favorite one. Actually, you know what? That Double or Nothing show from Vegas from 2019 was also awesome. So I'd have to think about that. But those are my 3 favorite AEW shows. What was your favorite match out of a night where, there's like 3 or 4 matches that could have fit that bill?
What did you say is your favorite AEW pay-per-view?
So the one that we went to in Chicago.
That by far for me too.
Yeah. And then I went to the first Double or Nothing in Vegas, and that felt like an event too.
Okay.
So those would be my 3 favorites.
All Out.
And
All Out is probably, I would say that's my favorite show I've ever been to.
I think so too.
I attribute that to the crew that I was with. Like I was with a really good group of guys, and like you were there, and I mean, just everybody had a great time. And my wife, that has never really enjoyed wrestling, like loved it. She really got it. Like she saw what we talk about when we talk about wrestling, and like the things, like those little things that like make it more interesting for us, because like we see certain things that someone that doesn't really watch wrestling doesn't see. She started seeing it, and I think that kind of elevated my experience there too, to enjoy it with your partner. I think there's nothing better than that. I would say for me, I really like that Jericho match, the opener. I thought that was done really well. See, I can't even put my finger on which one was my favorite. I want to default and say the dog collar match, but I don't think that was my overall favorite. I would say the 3. I don't know. It's like a tight one, man. It's really tight between the dog collar match and the opener for me. I really like the tag match. That was a great one. With the Bucks, that was a great match. And even on the pre-show, the pre-show had a pretty solid match with Malachi and those guys. That was fantastic too. What was your number one?
I would say Danielson and Moxley.
Oh, crap, of course, Danielson. You know what? I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I want everybody in the chat to call me an idiot right now. We got like 500 people in the chat. Everybody call me an idiot, because that was the best match on the card. Absolutely.
That's my favorite. And then you had the William Regal, or the Lord Regal moment at the end, which was the surprise of the night, right? It was like oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So that was my favorite. It's just that, it's really Dave and I talked to Danielson on Saturday, which was just such a fun interview when we got to talk to Brian. So doing that interview and then listening to him talk about the things that he thinks about, and I sort of asked him if he tries to have the best match, or cares about if they have the best match, and he said he really doesn't. So it's just fascinating conversation, and then to see them go deliver. And I know that those guys were pretty happy, and I know that specifically Moxley felt it the next morning. It was like, oh man, there's such a high after the show, and then the next morning is like, whew, feeling that match.
I was going to say, did you reach out to Mox and see how he was doing after that? He had to have felt that was a great moment in his career, that match,
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, send him a note just saying like, this is great. But yeah, so like that is like my perfect, like if you're thinking about like what is my perfect style of wrestling, like the mix and that whole thing, like that's my favorite style. So it was going to be an easy one for me. The Jericho and Eddie Kingston one as well, very similar. Like this is a little bit heavier, like strong style kind of Japan match. Those were my 2 favorites, but I have to give it up as well to the 2 Adams. I've been pretty vocal I would say on the Fight Game podcast, more so specifically because we talk about Dynamite every week. I've been pretty vocal that I've been disappointed in this Hangman run. And, I know there's a lot of fans who they romanticize the thing where the guy starts there in the beginning and he's not a champion, but you can kind of see him coming. I didn't like that Kenny match as much as a lot of people liked from the last pay-per-view when he did win the title. And somewhat, sometimes I feel like they utilize or that maybe they take advantage of that connection he has with the fans too much just to get heat. But that match, that was my favorite Hangman. He was on fire. And Adam Cole was
on fire. Yeah.
Adam Cole was the perfect guy, right? He's the perfect guy to have that match with him because he knows how to be in that main event. He hasn't been on a main event on that scale, but main eventing those NXT shows, I'm trying to think. He probably has. Yeah, he's main evented, bigger crowds than that. And when NXT was doing their thing, for sure. So he's been in that role. And so it's just like two younger guys who haven't overstayed their welcome, putting on a great show. Yeah, there's some stuff with that interference at the end where maybe it was unnecessary. But overall, just I thought those guys put it all on the line and had imagine having that good of a match, having to follow everything that happened in that pay-per-view so far at that time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he has suffered a little bit in his run as world champion, but I don't think it's a fault of his own. I think a lot has changed in the company, and overall AEW is kind of figuring out where everybody fits in this puzzle. Prior to, September, there was no Danielson, there was no Adam Cole, there was no CM Punk, and obviously everybody else that's coming in the company, Keith Lee. So a lot of the excitement and announcements has overshadowed his run as World Heavyweight Champion in the company. Now that we're over this pay-per-view, I'm hoping we see more defenses of the title on TV. I think that would help elevate him and put the focus on him as the world champion that's defending the title. And also, on this card, and you brought up something interesting, right? We're talking about what's our favorite match on the card.
Yeah.
You mentioned Danielson and Mox, right? And I said I'm an idiot for not remembering that match because that was my favorite match. We had Jericho and I think the Jericho match overshadowed the world title defense. I think the CM Punk match definitely was the prime focus of this card. So you've had three other situations that have taken the focus away from your world heavyweight champion. Now maybe it's time that you got these out of the way. You got these big matches out of the way, and you could go back to focusing the champion. I also think he needs to get away from the Dark Order. I think that is something that he needs to drop. I think he needs to now become more of a serious character. And, they're a comedy act, and they're not blending as well as they did prior.
I'm in. I would love to see it. I would love to see him be a stronger champion. Because look, this isn't the only time he's gonna have the run, right? This isn't the only time he's gonna be the champion. This is his first one. So that glory run for him doesn't have to be this time. It just has to be sort of setting him up to be one of those guys. I fully expect CM Punk to be there for his next big pay-per-view, the one that we're going to be at for the F4W convention. Which, by the way, we should throw out that link. What is the link for those tickets?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
No, you know what? I have it. I have it right here.
Telling me.
I have it right here in front of me. F4WOnline.com/Vegas. So there, I'll get back to Paige, but if you want to hang out with Andrew, if you want to see him in the flesh, if you want to see, maybe buy him a drink, come to that. We're gonna do stuff at Texas de Brazil for the dinner. We got the suite party, where I'm assuming everybody will sort of hopefully be there. And then there's Ed's Ed in San Antonio's show, his women's wrestling show, and then obviously all the I think there's a brunch too, but then I think the wrestling events. So it's just gonna be a crazy weekend.
I think John, our producer, may be producing that Ed's wrestling show.
No way.
I
That's
think
awesome.
So. I think it's something in the works there. No, listen, I'm looking forward to this. I'm coming. Jess isn't coming with me because she's doing this Chicago trip. She's like, listen, this is your boys' weekend, all right? Go nuts over there in Vegas.
I'm almost scared that you just said that because that might mean that
you're gonna see me. The buttons are getting. I mean, there's like no buttons now.
I'm not even really.
Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
It's not that. It's just that you've just raised the ceiling of what that weekend is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I mean, my wife's not coming either. But
okay,
interesting. That's I don't know. There's some pressure on.
Listen,
on
and I want to meet like the people that everybody that's at the convention. Like I love these things. I'm going to tell you something, Eric. And I think people get the wrong impression of me. They think I'm a little bit of an a-hole. I don't know why. I think it's the eyebrows and the hair more than anything else. I am one of the nicest people.
You're so personable.
I love talking to people. I could talk to you about anything. Give me a doorknob and I'll talk to a doorknob. I just like to talk to people, meet people, know people's stories. I'm looking I'm looking forward to this so much, to meet everybody that goes to the convention, because this is something that I've wanted to do for years since it started. Yep. I've thought about doing it I mean, listen, I'm a fan of F4W, obviously. I'm an observer reader for 20 some odd years. I've wanted to do this for last, I don't know, since what, 2005? It's been going on, right? Around then?
Like maybe a year or two after that, I think.
Where
everyone started going.
This. Yeah. I've wanted to do this for the longest time, and now like I have to do it, right? And I'm so glad I have to do this because it's made the decision for me that we're doing this and we're hanging out and we're just, I think it's gonna be an awesome time for an awesome show, and it's Vegas and the weather's great,
So I will say, and we'll move on after this, but the Sweet Party is going to be a lot of fun. Sometimes when you have an event like that, it comes with people kind of come in pockets, like, oh, I'm coming with my friend, or I'm coming with a couple friends, and it's kind of hard to sort of intermingle because what everyone wants to do is just ask Dave questions about wrestling. Like that's literally like everyone's like going, I'm going to the Sweet Party, I'm gonna have fun, but in the back of their mind, what they really want to do is ask Dave questions. So I am telling everybody who is watching this, who is listening to this, you have it on my word that Andrew and I will lather that room up a little bit to where there's some comfortableness, and we'll get those questions answered by both Brian and Dave, because people want to meet Brian too. So, the people who've been there before, maybe they don't need it as much, but especially the newbies, the people who are coming, maybe for the first or the second time, that Sweet Party is going to be fun, and I will make sure about that. And Andrew understands how to do this at big levels, so we'll make sure that Sweet Party is really fun.
It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a blast. I'm really excited for this, and I think I need it. Mental health. I need it for my mental health to get away from New York for a little bit and have this great time watching wrestling and talking about wrestling to Dave Meltzer, which that's my life. That's where my life has led me. It's unbelievable. 16-year-old me is having a blast right now, man. He can't believe it.
Both of us, man. All right, let's get back to this pay-per-view. So, if Punk is the next guy, would you put the title on Punk?
See, this is it. I don't know, and it has more to do with not Punk himself, but how they build this up and how they get there. I think you need to protect the guys like Danielson, Punk, Mox less, because Mox is I think Mox has the longevity of Mox in AEW, to me, for some reason, feels way more than it is for CM Punk. I think CM Punk should eventually get the title. I also think Danielson should get the title. Mm-hmm. You need to build legacy, a nice lineage of that title belt. Right now, they've had, obviously they have Chris Jericho. That was the first one that kind of gave that Ric Flair moment type person to have the title. You got Kenny, you got Mox, now you have Hangman. I think when you put the title on a Danielson or a CM Punk, it's gonna have to mean something. I don't know if you do it now. I don't know if Punk should win the title today, at whatever the next pay-per-view is or anything. I also don't know how long Adam Page's run should be as world champion, or if they feel that it's doing something to them. Is it helping them by having him have the title? There's a lot of variables here. I definitely think they need to put the title on him. I don't know if it hurts him by losing, though. I think that's the big question. How much is it going to hurt CM Punk if he loses a title match versus him winning the title?
I would like to see it. I think he's the biggest star in the company at this point right now. He had you mentioned the match with MJF and the big spectacle that it was, and so much so that he created arguments around wrestling fans about whether you're a good enough wrestling fan if you didn't know the ROH theme song that he came out to.
God forbid you don't know that ROH theme song. God forbid you're not a fan of AFI. I'm just telling you, you may get a mean tweet from CM Punk if you don't know that he had this song 17 years ago in Ring of Honor.
My poor buddy, Paul Fontaine.
No, poor guy.
He had to sit through some Twitter trash. So CM Punk is fantastic at thinking this stuff through, from the presentation to the match, bloodbath. It wasn't my favorite match because I don't think it was really designed to be like. There were pockets of time where nothing happened, but in that nothing that happened, you kind of needed it because it was like just the pain and the agony and all that stuff. So I was totally fine with that. I thought the whole story, that was my favorite story of the night was that match.
Yeah.
And look, man, MJF, gosh, if you could buy stock in talent, right? Like, this is the guy who, how old is this guy? He's like in his early 20s still.
26. So 2016, I called one of his matches on Long Island.
Okay.
I talk about this all the time because, it's sometimes like I was terrible at my job that night. I was a terrible color commentary guy. I've never done it before. I think if I did it today, it'd be a little bit different because I'm way more comfortable with wrestling now.
Yeah.
But I called his match, and it had to have been one of his early matches. I have to tell you, man, when he came out and when he wrestled, I was like, this guy's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going back to 2016, late 2016. So, I'm thinking November 2016. He was fantastic then. And he was, not really too known to the mainstream. It was almost impossible for him, other than, him deterring his own career, for this not to go well for him. I think at this point, you've solidified him as that guy. He's a heat magnet. Where do you go now with CM Punk, with MJF? I think if Punk wins the title, have him lose his first defense to MJF. You could do something like that to kind of even add more heat to this whole thing.
I don't think that's a bad idea because, that the story, I don't imagine that it's over. There's a Wardlow thing, and, Punk can still be related tangentially to that. But yeah, there's so many things that they could do. By the way, we didn't get to talk about this because it just happened the day after we did our show. But what'd you think about the ROH library thing?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I think this is I think Tony has a lot of pressure on him with this. When we were talking about this, and I think you and I were going back and forth, WWE was convinced. WWE was very confident it was a streaming deal, which I'm still being told it's coming, the streaming deal.
Makes sense.
So they're not wrong there, but they were very much under the impression that it was an international pro wrestling promotion that is not New Japan, that they have a library deal with. Maybe they do. Maybe that's the next piece to this puzzle, because they're going to build a streaming platform. They need more content than 2 or 3 years of professional wrestling that they have. I am a little concerned with Tony booking Ring of Honor, what that does to his abilities of booking AEW. Not that he's not going to be able to do it, but you only have so many hours in the day. And you
And so,
only have
how do you
much
do so many
creativity.
jobs? He's got so many jobs.
Yeah, he owns a football. He owns a American football team. He owns a football team for international viewers. He owns AEW, and obviously he's involved in a whole bunch of other businesses. You know, this isn't he's not a one-trick pony. This dude, I'm, you know, he's young enough to do it.
I
What is he?
guess.
39. He still has that energy. He has that umph. I think Tony can. But the thing about this is when you talk to talent, and I've spoken to a couple people outside of AEW too, they are thrilled that Tony has the archives. And
Yeah.
that is a big part of this. And more than anything, more than hearing like what's Tony going to do with AEW from talent, right? And I'm saying specifically from talent, like I'm hearing less of like, hey, maybe I want to go to Ring of Honor and wrestle there, or I want to do this. It's more of I'm so glad he owns he's possessing this because he's going to do right by it. It's not going to disappear in some obscure category on Peacock where nobody will watch anything. Or key things are missing. We've spoken about this. A lot of the Mid-South stuff that WWE has, a lot of it is missing. There's tons of content that's not available on there. They don't really do a good job at presenting it the way it should be. I think Tony, being such a fan of wrestling, growing up in my era of wrestling, I think he's going to do everything to preserve the memory of this and treat this as something really big. This is Tony's ECW more than anything else. And I think for a lot of people, this is sacred tapes, and this is a sacred moment in their career. CM Punk was crying during the scrum from sheer joy that Tony has, Tony's in possession of CM Punk's career and not WWE. And that says a lot for a lot of people. And it's not just him thinking that way. People that I've spoken to with feel the same way about this. However, what do you do with the wrestling with Ring of Honor? Listen, I don't know so much about this, but if I was going to do it, I would not want to sacrifice my product. I would want this to become something else. And you know what? This is a great opportunity for them to kind of go after NXT, just like how NXT went after AEW, where you create whatever this version of Ring of Honor would be. Maybe you do it in Orlando, in Universal, and you make this a pre-taped show where you film, a couple weeks worth in one shot, and you have guys like Danielson on there occasionally, and you have all these guys there, and then you grow it from there, just like how NXT was building, and you go back on the road maybe. You start off small, and you go back to what it was. I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of talent to start working in front of people.
Yeah, it could be, well, I don't know. I still have a, like, you got to still make money with it, right? Like, you're not doing it just for the prestige, and you're not doing it just to better better the professional wrestling.
What would you do? What do you think Tony does? I'm curious.
That's the $1 million question.
Actually, both.
I think it's very similar.
Those are both my questions for you. I'm going to give you two questions. One, what would you do? And two, what would Tony do? What should Tony do?
Okay, I'm pretty close. My idea was pretty close to yours. I would do a streaming show, though. I would make it very similar to how the NXT show used to be, which was on the WWE Network. I would, if you're building, a wing of a library, how do you get people to constantly go back in who aren't just watching old footage? Well, you create new content that is timely and that you promote and that people will have to come back and watch. So I would do that with ROH. Here's my main question. If you do put it on the road, like you said, aren't you losing some? Wouldn't it be better to promote it as AEW versus promoting it as ROH? Aren't you leaving money on the table by calling this thing ROH and promoting it as ROH?
I think so. I think you're absolutely right there. You're leaving a lot of money on the table because we know Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor's never had 1 million people watch their product at a single given time. This is not. We understand the importance of Ring of Honor and what they achieved. The same way with ECW. Put that in the same category. But at the end of the day, why would you put so much effort in a brand that's not really yours, right? Or the mainstream product that's yours. I think they could do some cool stuff. I mean, running a Hammerstein Ballroom show, running the ECW Arena. You could do a show there. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do, but the money for them is going to be in the licensing of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the money is. You know, the CM Punk early career Ring of Honor action figure, the Danielson action figure, all these, you know, you have a line of products you're now going to be able to sell and create money. You also up your value of your company by having assets,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of, you know, I don't know, you know, obviously Tony's a lot smarter than me and a lot smarter, maybe a lot smarter than you. I don't, maybe you're smarter than Tony, but I'm telling you, Tony's a lot smarter than me.
Wrestling smart. I
assume,
think he's smarter than me.
Wrestling smart, he's smarter than you.
Yeah.
See, but other stuff, not so much.
I don't know. He's a really look. I've talked with him in person before. He's a very smart guy. Not taking anything away from him.
Yeah, well, here's a great thing. Indy Quebec in our chat says, "What assets? Some old ring? No, not physical assets. Don't. I mean, that adds to it, sure, but we're talking about possession of digital assets.
Yeah,
a library of 20 years, individual careers, essentially.
Okay, so you know, let's look at this from a bigger picture. The NFL is selling. I think it's like they're selling a piece of their media rights or media company or whatever. So involved in that is the Sunday Ticket, which is all the games, right? You know, you have your local games, but anything out of your local area you can't see. So you get the Sunday Ticket, and you can watch as many football games as you want. The Red Zone channel, which is their fantasy, you know, thing that people who are big time fantasy players watch that channel, and also the NFL Network. And so it was assumed that Amazon was going to be the buyer, and now Apple has come in, and now there's like two people competing for this thing. So what does that do? That just jacks up the price of it, right? Like now this thing is worth more because you have two people wanting to bid for it. Today, I'm sure you followed this call, the Apple event thing, because it's kind of in your wheelhouse. They announced that they have a Friday night baseball package going to Apple TV, and which you know, ESPN kind of dialed back their baseball package over the last few years, so there's more real estate available in Major League Baseball. And so now you have two Friday night games that are going to be on Apple. They're gonna have a whole channel dedicated, a 24/7 channel dedicated to baseball, both new and old, and shows. There's going to be a wraparound show, like, so there's going to be so many things available for a sport that is currently locked out its players and is not even there. There's no spring training right now. So I say that all to say that whatever Tony is building, this is the right space to be in, right? All he's doing, and this is the irony of the whole thing. And, you know, for WWE fans, Tony Khan, the only reason AEW can exist is because Vince McMahon built this new business, this new content model for wrestling. He created the blueprint, and Tony Khan is like, oh, now we can make money in this too. There can be two because of what Vince McMahon created, with rights fees being the way that they are, with TV moving in the same direction. So doing, you know, what you're saying, the digital assets piece of this, that's exactly where this thing needs to go, because look at where all the money is going.
Yeah, I also, by the way, I don't think Tony paid $40 million for Ring of Honor.
I
was getting messaged. I cannot begin to tell you how many people messaged me saying this man is such a fool. He's just using his money to buy things for crazy. Of course, he beat WWE in the bidding for this thing. He paid $40 million. Tony did not pay $40 million. I don't think he paid close to $40 million. $40 million as an evaluation for a company, you have to be making. I mean, if Ring of Honor was a $40 million company, they would not be selling. Sinclair would not be selling Ring of Honor. Okay, they're selling them because they cannot make money with them, and that's the truth, unfortunately. I don't know what Tony paid. I would say it would be far less than 40 million. Now the question is, how do you operate this thing? Where are you going to put it? There's no TV fee. There's no TV rights, right? We don't know if Sinclair's going to continue this, and why would you want to continue it? To be honest,
no one was watching anyways.
Nobody was watching anyway near the end, and also, like, I'm in New York. I'm in a major market. Okay, it's a Ring of Honor territory, right? New York City, Philly, the East Coast, Baltimore. I mean, obviously they have a good channel in Baltimore, but we did not have. I don't have a Ring of Honor on TV. I think they were on like the Comet channel, which is not on any cable provider. It's a local over-the-air channel that nobody has access to and nobody knows when it's on. So, you have to rethink this, and the reality is, Ring of Honor will become a digital property, and it's a great experiment to see how well a brand like this could work like that, being exclusively on a streaming provider. Moving forward. I think this is a nice little experiment to see what the value of something like this is.
Yeah. It's going to be a fascinating, we sort of follow this stuff day by day because there's always news coming out of it. The Austin thing that happened today, and then there's NXT tonight, then tomorrow's going to be Dynamite again. And this thing just keeps going and going and going. But like, it's going to be fun to look big picture too and see, what is the business like in 6 months? Where is AEW with a possible streaming company, down the line and in a year? What is WWE's TV deals going to look like, in the near future? What is AEW's next TV? Like, there's so many things.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was like, what if WWE was like, hey, HBO Max, what about our second day Raw and SmackDown rights?
I don't know. Can he even do that?
I don't know. I don't know if they could.
But that would. I mean, what a.
But like, just the whole way that this business works, where they're constantly, there's lots of opportunities to sabotage the other side. It's kind of funny.
Oh, there's tons of opportunities to sabotage the other side. We're mentioning HBO a lot, and I think that's the one that has to make sense because that's the hub for all of Turner's products. But is there anywhere else that they could possibly go?
Well, I think now what they have to think about is you have to align the TV deal with the streaming service, right? So you got to sort of be in the same company or in the same.
Everybody has a streaming service now.
Yeah, so I don't think it's like maybe it's a sweeter deal for the next TV deal if they're like, yeah, we're staying with TBS. Okay, well then now we negotiate with HBO Max because they're tied together. But like, I don't think you can go, oh, we're going to work with TNT and then we're going to sell our library to another. I mean, maybe you could. Maybe that's the way to get both of them, up for the next time for companies to bid higher for them. I don't know. I think it'd make your partners pretty mad. Here's another thing
to consider. Do you think, because AEW does not have a next day streaming service, right? It's like I have
TNT app or something. Yeah.
Is it next day? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never tried it because I've always watched Dynamite live.
Like I watch on YouTube TV and it automatically archives it for me because I set it on DVR. But
yeah,
how much of a detriment is having a next day streaming deal on HBO Max for AEW's live viewership? That's something you need to consider also because they are going in a weird period where, in 2 years, 2024, the contract is up. They're probably going into negotiations soon, I would imagine. You don't do this like 3 months out. Maybe this is part of that if they're going to get an extension. You also don't want to hurt your live viewership because that's where your money comes from for ad revenue, right? That's how they justify if it's worth paying you hundreds of millions of dollars for a TV show if you're able to generate the ads. I think they're in like a weird limbo position, and whatever move they make has to be a positive.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a good place to end it. Like we didn't even have time to take emails or questions or anything. So I think it's because we didn't have a show last week. So we just had so many things to talk to each other about.
I know, but you and I could talk to each other for like 6 hours straight, And
it would probably
be a watch along. Yeah, I'm sure.
The sweet
just
party.
Us talking. That's the watch along. Yeah, the sweet party.
There you go. We'll end it there. And we'll be back next week. So for Andrew, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.